Tom, I know you've been investing since 2012. You've talked about student rental and low income Section 8 as being a specialty of yours. Have wholesaled, refinanced leverage partners up to multiple hundreds of rentals in your portfolio. And on top of that, you're great at putting out content out there to help others, between entertaining TikToks all the way to that Discord community. So have quite a variety of things you can cover together. But again, excited to have you on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on, and longtime DealMachine user, and look forward to talking more about real estate today.
Yeah. So can you kind of maybe start with a little bit more than just your couple bullet point bio, and tell others about your journey and how you got started, and more about yourself there?
Yeah. Long story short, I'm originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Lived there for 5 years, moved to the United States, around when I was 5 or 6, and then grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Went to UNCW and graduated in 2010. And then shortly after, I started wholesaling properties. I'd been doing marketing and different types of side hustles during college. That's where I kind of got the idea right after college to look at wholesaling properties as a good way of being able to get money for down payments in order to start buying rental properties. And then from that point on, it just kind of took off from there.
Nice. Yeah. Can you, I know, and with the rentals, I know, was student housing the first thing you got into, or can you tell us more about, your first deal, how you got into that, what gave you the confidence to do that?
Yeah, sure. So my first deal was actually my primary residence. I bought a condo to live in, and lived there for about a year using FHA loan. This is at the time, I think 3.5%, I think, down payment is what I went with. And after that, lived in there for a while, decided that I wanted a larger house. And I honestly thought I was going to be upside down and couldn't sell the condo because I only put 3% down, and it was a bad market back then. So I decided to rent it, and it rented same day. I got killer tenants, and that's what kind of sparked the idea of looking into rentals, was how easy it was to rent that first unit. So I bought my primary residence, another house, like literally a mile away from my original condo. Rented that one. I was cash flowing probably $400 or $500 a month on that, completely by accident. I had no idea what I was doing. I took the tenants out to lunch. That's how I screened them. Was like, all right, let's, I guess this is what we do to make sure that this is going to be a good, fit. And we went out to lunch, and it worked out great. And then from there, I was like, well, if that condo worked, maybe more condos will work. So maybe I just need to, keep buying more condos. So in order to do that, I needed to, obviously have cash for down payments, because at this time it was still, 10, 15, 20%, depending on the loan product I used. So I looked into wholesaling properties, got into it. I had a couple of different investors in town that I knew that were doing wholesaling, subject to deals, a lot of different types of kind of creative financing, a lot of lease to own. Spoke to them, got an idea of how it worked. And then I started prospecting, started reaching out. It was obviously all manual at that time. Sending out cards, handwritten letters, pretty much anything I could do. I did a lot of bandit signs back then. Did my first wholesale deal. It's around $80,000. I think I made probably $7,000 on the assignment fee. Retained that cash, did it again. I was probably doing 2 or 3 deals at a time. I'd already graduated from UNCW, so I had all the time in the world. And then I was still doing my search engine optimization and web design on the side to kind of continue to fund that. And then I got, my first enough cash to put a down payment on my second condo, rented that out, same exact process as the first one. And those probably first, I would say 3 or 4 was a combination of student housing and just like regular midtown, private income. None of this was Section 8 yet. Section 8 would only come later on.
Nice. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. And Brody, to answer your question, we will send a recording of this after. We posted to our YouTube as well. So everybody, if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, go just DealMachine. If you just look up DealMachine on YouTube, it'll pop right up. So this will be sent out. But again, quick reminder for everybody, please feel free to throw your questions in the chat. We want to keep this, open, casual conversation. I have questions that I'm excited to ask Tom about, but obviously everybody's here for a reason and wanting to learn specific things on their own. Some newbies here all the way up to more advanced investors. So feel free to throw your questions in the chat, and I can get to tee those up for Tom as well. Also, one other quick reminder, this attendee sheet as well. This is a contact sharing sheet that if anyone's looking to network with each other, I kept it open so people can go in there and talk about what market they're in, who they're looking to meet, and use it as a way to network and meet each other as well. So great. Well, here's one question from Yagna. How did your tenant eval change over the years? So I assume you haven't taken every tenant out to lunch through the years.
No, that was probably the first few. I did that and then quickly realized that I need to be looking, further into credit reports and background checks and eviction histories and things like that. So I found different background checking tools and switched that more into a process. After thinking about 5 units, that's where I really started to take it seriously and treat it more like a business. Because up until then, it was just an extra side hustle, being able to just add more properties. And my main goal was to replace my marketing income at the time, which was just doing, basic SEO and pay-per-click for small businesses locally.
Awesome. And again, the Google sheet should be editable now. I just thank you for pointing that out. You're and a few people in there. So yeah, feel free to jump into the Google sheet at this point. But awesome. Another good question here from Jamal. On your mailers, what is getting a good response now? Like what is that message? What are you writing on them to get a good response in this market?
Yeah. So I'll try before and after. So before I was using DealMachine, like I said, I was doing handwritten letters. It was super time consuming. So I really had to focus on the quality because I wasn't going to write out 1,000 letters and manually do it. I was focusing on units that were clearly in disrepair, clearly distressed, units that had been vacated, and just trying to, get a hold of the owner somehow. After when I started using DealMachine, obviously I used the postcard functionality and being able to kind of scale that outreach. I kept it super simple. I used very little imagery. I used mostly text. At the time, obviously I was taking pictures of every property because I was physically going by and taking them and adding them to the postcard. And I'm trying to remember the exact wording that I used in the last one that had performed well. It was something along the lines of stop by, was interested in your property. Are you interested in selling? I mean, it was very basic. It was more of a question to try to engage them when they were looking at it. And the lower the production value of the postcard, I find the better the response. It's almost like, oh, okay, this is another individual that's on my house and, sent me a message about it versus, oh, this is a large scale operation that's trying to, spam me. So that seemed to work better. The more low tech, the better.
Yeah, and we actually, even within DealMachine, you actually have a handwritten option as well.
Right.
So I don't know if you messed around with that too much, but yeah, it's ballpoint marketing we work with to send out letters like that. And okay. Again, like that would be, the handwritten approach of saying like, hey, I'm a local investor and showing them like, hey, there's a person behind this. It's not just some big corporation putting out a bunch of mailers. So
yeah, because the biggest thing is just getting their trust and also getting credibility at the same time. And if you come across as not authentic or slimy, then they don't even read it. Yeah.
And I think one really interesting question here that I actually had going into this as well, from Taran, mentioned, said, hey, if you were to start over again today, what would you do differently? How has the market evolved? That was my question, is like, hey, we know you've scaled up to hundreds of rentals. Like, what is your approach that you would have changed, looking back retrospectively?
So I guess, was there two questions? Like, what would I do currently, or what would I have done in the past if I were to start over, or both?
Oh yeah. Actually answer both of those if that's okay. If that's okay. Yeah.
So if I were to start over, I would have definitely gone a lot more aggressive with wholesaling. I did not reinvest enough cash into growing the wholesale side of things, so it was a lot slower. I try to do too much myself versus, trying to hire either virtual assistants or local assistants. Had I done that sooner and not try to just have this very like scarcity mindset, like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to pay them, or oh my God, like I have to keep all the money, because I still had another income. So it wasn't like I wasn't going to eat if I wasn't doing a wholesale deal. So that would be something I would do differently. I would spend a lot more time on refining processes with DealMachine, with follow-ups through either postcards, SMS, whatever way is working for you in your market. I would double down on that. And then the second that you get a good wholesale deal and you're able to afford somebody for even a quarter, you'll see how big of a difference it makes in your life. I mean, you're able to focus on the actual growing the business versus being in the business. Mm-hmm. So that would be something that if I were to start over, I would be a one-man show for a lot less time. And now if I were to do what I was doing, if I were starting over today, mm-hmm. I would focus a lot on, that's a great question. Right back then, I was able to do a lot more stuff with properties that were for sale by owner on the market. And then it was just reaching out and trying to get them to sell for below market value. Now anything on the market is super hot and it's just not a good deal. You know, everything's going for above list. So I would focus a lot more on off market deals with driving for dollars. I would spend a lot more time on that. So along with having an assistant that would help with the marketing aspect, the follow-ups, the scheduling and the phone calls, I would do a lot more work with getting deals and getting more motivated sellers in the pipeline. And that's what we do today. I mean, right now, you can't go into an MLS and find a listing, buy it, and put a rental in there, a tenant in there, and cash flow really well. You have to find distressed properties off market. And the way we do that is through referrals. We have really good agents in their area that we build relationships with, and we get, pocket listings all the time. We get listings from property management companies that we partner with and say, hey, look, if you have an owner at one of your property management one of your property management clients that want to sell, let us know before it ever gets to an agent or ever gets to MLS, and we'll buy it. So that works really well too, because property managers are the first ones to realize when a property is in bad shape or the owner is sick of it or they ran out of money and they just want to get rid of it. So we get a ton of referrals through there. So then those are some of the things that we do to find deals.
Yeah. And I think, a common theme between building your team, between, network, or between getting to know your community like this, I think networking for referrals and whatnot is absolutely huge. That was one of the reasons for this contact sharing sheet. Feel free to jump in there and continue to network with each other. I'll keep sharing it in the chat throughout the night. But to answer a couple questions, Leroy, if you're in Vegas, but you're wanting to use DealMachine, you can use it in Texas still, especially if you do virtual driving for dollars. Which, Tom, did you say, do you do much, virtual like that? Okay.
Yeah. So we'll do virtual driving for dollars, anything I would say outside of 30 minutes for me, just because the time, I'm not going to have my property managers go out, out of town to be able to prospect. So for the most part, I'll have them. And by the way, I use my property managers for driving for dollars and for prospecting. I don't have like a whole separate wholesaling team. So I have 4 full-time property managers. And if they're not busy, managing properties or it's a slow maintenance day, they're prospecting and finding deals as well. So it's kind of a hybrid approach.
Yeah. What does your full team look like? Like, how is that as you've scaled? Can you kind of talk through your strategy there of how you built out that team? And especially because you mentioned you wish you did that sooner, like would love to hear your thought process there.
Right now it's 4 full-time property managers. I'm finding with the type of properties that I use or that I buy, they're a little bit more management intensive. There's going to be inspections with Section 8 or with other subsidized programs. So you can't give a property manager 150, 200 properties and say, figure it out. It's a lot more intense than that. So right now, between 90 and 95 units per property manager is what I'm finding works great before they break and want to quit. So we have 4 full-time managers. I have 2 full-time, just general contractor handymen, pretty much, punch list guys. And then I have 3 turnover crews that I just kind of call based on their availability. They are not mine exclusively. And that's pretty much it. I have one go-to buyer's agent, a Coldwell banker here locally that pretty much only focuses on investors, and he helps me, find deals. He does all the paperwork and everything like that.
Nice. Yeah. That's great. One good question in here from Eric. He said, are there any techniques or custom workflows you're using in DealMachine that you consider a secret sauce in getting higher response rates? And also on top of that, I'd love to hear just your overall marketing strategy, like when you are, getting this deal flow, like what your outreach looks like outside of referrals.
Yeah. So to answer the first part of that, with the marketing flow in DealMachine, it's just consistency with postcards is the biggest thing that I found. I think a big pitfall that I see in Discord and TikTok and any Instagram video comments, it's like, oh, I sent out 2 postcards, I didn't get any response. It's like, it takes a lot more than that, So we're going for several months. We're doing at least, 1 every 7 to 10 days, and it's ongoing. And then we're also following up with phone calls. And if we skip trace their email and phone number, we're calling and texting those. And, we keep track of that inside of DealMachine. And then we also keep track of that with other inbound strategies through Podio, where we also use HubSpot. We're kind of testing, different CRMs to be able to manage those deal flows. As far as the marketing that I'm using in order to generate off-market deals, I do a lot of Facebook ads with Facebook leads for inbound. We're starting to also do videos now on Instagram. We also do, obviously videos and ads in DealMachine that a lot of people have reached out and noticed that as well. We still do a lot of off-market and traditional types of advertising. Bandit signs are one. We still do flyers, door hangers in certain neighborhoods. I'll have my property managers, they have a stack of 1,000, and when there's downtime, they'll just go drop those, looking for buying for deals, looking for deals. And then again, referrals. We have business cards that say we buy houses, $500 referral per house. And anytime they're downtown and they're engaging or talking to any neighbor or tenant or homeowner, they just give them the cards. And we have, I would say, 2 or 3 calls per week from somebody that wants to make $500, and their auntie or grandma or somebody selling a house and they don't want to deal with an agent and they want a cash offer. So it's just a marketing mix. You have to have multiple inbound and outbound marketing techniques going concurrently in order to do it. If you just depend on one, if you're only sending postcards and you have no other follow-up and you have no other lead flow or lead source, it's going to be very frustrating. If you're only cold calling and you're spending your entire day, banging your head against the phone and trying to knock out 300 calls a day, you're going to get discouraged because it's just not scalable or sustainable.
Yeah, and that is one thing we really try to preach, even within the DealMachine app, is like you said, multiple different marketing channels, and also long-term and short-term marketing strategies. Right. So like the short-term stuff would be skip trace and give a call, give a text, give an email. The long-term being mailers, where you can put on an automated campaign. We're actually we just launched our upgraded mailer feature. Like our mailers tab is all revamped as of the last week or two. So definitely check that out. Where within mailers now, it's much more powerful custom designing for templates. You can do different sizes now, so you can all kinds of different sizes of postcards, different types. And then more advanced actual campaigns as well, where you're saying, hey, send this kind of postcard, then this. And it just makes it easier to manage the whole thing too, where you can see the calendar of when they're going out and plan your marketing spend accordingly. So we just revamped that very recently. So I'm really excited about releasing that too.
Cool.
Chad had a question here. You answered this a little bit, talking about hiring that team, but he had said, if I hire a property manager, it sounds like he has 21 units currently.
Awesome.
If I hire a property manager, I'll cut my profits significantly. But if I choose to grow, at what point does that growth outweigh the loss of the income from the hire? Like how do you kind of think through when to bring in people?
Yeah. And that was that chicken and the egg problem. I had the exact same issue. And that's why I waited until I had about 31 units before I hired my first property manager. And you have to realize that your time has a lot of value, and a lot of people sell themselves short on that. So yes, it's going in the short term to cut your cash flow because you're gonna have to pay somebody else to do it. But now you're gonna have a ton of free time, not picking up phone calls from tenants that have a broken toilet and have to schedule a maintenance guy. You're not gonna have to go and spend half your day showing properties on your vacancies. You're not gonna have to spend your time sending out leases and dealing with dot loop and following up with tenants on getting properties occupied. You don't have to deal with inspections with Section 8. There's a million things you don't have to deal with the second that you hire that person. And now you realize that your entire day is free. And to me, I found that, okay, if I have a whole day free, what am I able to now do? And in that case, it was just a prospect for more off-market deals so I can start growing my rental business. And that involved more wholesaling. They were able to handle the property management. I was able to find more off-market deals. I was able to grow my buyers list faster because I had now, 10, 11 hours a day to work on that versus chase after tenants and collect rents and things like that.
Yep. That's great. An interesting one from Hamilton here. He said, being just in the real estate investment business, how do you discipline yourself on a daily basis to grow a business and have a productive day? Like what does your typical day look like? And do you have any routines or advice on how you're staying productive with so much going on?
Yeah. So for me, it's all about just breaking my day into small, chunks. I don't subscribe to the 5 a.m. nonsense of waking up that early. I can't do that. I know that every social media influencer and motivator and life coach is saying to do that. I think it's for the birds. I like to go to sleep late and wake up late. For me, late is, 8 to 8:30 a.m. workout. That's a pretty normal basic morning, and then eat. And then after that, it's, between, I would say 10 to 3, 10 to 4, I have it broken down. When I was wholesaling, I would break that down into different activities. So from like 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., I would drive for dollars. There's no traffic on the roads. I didn't have to deal with any, have to deal with stop and go back and forth. And taking pictures of people's houses before I was making offer is a lot easier when no one's home and everyone's at work. Grab lunch at 12, 12:30, get back, 1 to 4. I would focus on prospecting. I would work on my marketing. I would, build inbound, kind of funnels and opt-in forms, or use Facebook ads in order to generate those leads on the inbound side. I would, on the way home, maybe drop some bandit signs on some, corners if they got knocked down. So as far as motivation, you just need to constantly keep these little wins coming, even if it's like, okay, great, I got my entire marketing funnel set up. Okay, I already got 2 leads coming in today. I need to follow up with them quickly. And my goal for this month is to buy 2 rental properties. How am I going to get there? Okay, I need to get X amount of money for a down payment. How do I get that down payment? I need to complete 4 wholesale deals. How do I complete 4 wholesale deals? So if you go with your end goal and just work backwards and then break those down into smaller bits, it makes it a whole lot easier to get through the day and actually be productive. A big trap that a lot of people fall into is just like acting like they're busy to make themselves feel better. Doing non-income producing activities doesn't move the needle at all. If you're sitting there designing a business card or working on your logo or setting up an LLC, that's not going to make you really any money in the short term. So focus more on actually producing outcomes that generate income. That would be my biggest, I would say, advice there.
Yeah. And speaking to productivity and finding things that can, help you focus on things that matter. Eric had also another follow-up question on tools and things you use for, let's see, property management, acquisitions and dispositions. And then once you answer that, I'll ask the part 2 of that.
Okay. Yeah. So we initially used Inigo, Innago. It's a free property management app. At the very beginning, we used Cozy, but we quickly outgrew that. And then Inigo just wasn't really working for our flow, because we kind of have like a unique thing. Majority of our properties were, or still are, Section 8 or a dozen other subsidies that we work with. So there's always split invoicing, and there's the invoicing from direct deposit or from Section 8, and then there's also the tenant portion. And then with accounting and maintenance and tracking that, and tracking inspections and inspection scheduling and approvals and different documents, we decided just to build our own. So we built our own software called Cruz, and we just use it internally. And it works really well for subsidized income properties. And as far as acquisitions, we just use HubSpot CRM. We have just a pipeline in there for, pending deals that we've made put a contract out on, and deals that are closed. And we just track, potential new acquisitions through there.
Okay. And then on the part 2 of that was internal software. So like payroll, employee onboarding, training, communication, that type of stuff.
Yeah. So payroll, my accountant handles just through QuickBooks. She pays them directly. I only have the 4 full-time property managers and the 2 hands. So it's only 6 people. And 2 of them are the 2 contractors are 1099, and the 4 property managers are W2. And I think she uses QuickBooks payroll to pay them. I'm honestly not sure. She handles all of that. And yeah, that's really the only other. We also use Trello for internal just processes and managing different tasks that we need to do internally. And yeah, I think that's it offhand.
Great.
And Google Suite, everyone uses
that. Yeah. So, and just a reminder for everybody, we have Tom's bio pulled up to give you context to ask really good questions, but feel free to keep throwing things in the chat. I'm going to be monitoring that in addition to my own questions. I will also continue to share this contact sharing sheet. And again, this is for people, easy, make it easy for you to be able to meet other people in your market, hold each other accountable, similar to how people do in the Facebook group, the DealMachine Facebook group, and help each other that way. Network in your own markets, and you can even build your cash buyers list if, within that entire function as well. But
yeah, super important.
I know, let's see, Sam here had a question around partnering. He just said, I'm partnering with someone, do we split the bill? Like, how do you think about partnering and even for me as well, like structuring the partnership, but then like finding a partner too. I'm very curious on if you've got advice there.
Yeah. So structuring the partnership, it really depends on the deal. Like for me, a lot of the ones that I set up, I would have the partner bring the funds to close. They were just the cash silent investor. And we would do a 50-50 split, 50-50 on equity, 50-50 on cash flow. Sometimes if they wanted their, their investment back sooner, I would do like 65-35% on cash flow where they get their down payment back faster. And then once they have their entire down payment repaid or their investment, then it goes back to 50-50. And then what am I bringing is the financing. At that point, by the time I was ready for partnership, I already had a track record of multiple properties and 3 or 4 different banking relationships. So I was able to say, hey, look, I'll secure the financing and you bring the cash, and we split everything. And that worked out well. It's really a necessary evil. All the partners that I've ever had, I ended up buying out, just because depending on how many units you're doing, it's just never really enough. And then if they're not doing anything, resentment builds. It's just not worth it in the long term. For me, I just prefer to, be by myself, with real estate. So unless you absolutely need a partner and the only thing they're bringing is cash, then, make sure you work out an exit plan pretty early on to figure out like, hey, at this valuation, we're going to do a cash out refi. I'm going to buy you out, and then you can, pursue something else. But I want all the properties to myself at some point.
Yeah. If they are set on getting a partner, do you have any tips on finding that partner, evaluating that partner?
Yeah. So for me, I found several partners at RIA events, Real Estate Investor Association events. They have a local chapter here locally a local chapter here locally. They have a chapter in Wilmington called Cape Fear Real Estate Investors Association chapter. And in every major city, they have a version of it. I think mostly them are done now on Zoom, but they work really well. There's a lot of investors that show up. There's also a lot of agents that just show up there just because they want, to try to drum up new business. But there's a lot of investors, a lot of keynote speakers at those events. And those are really good ways of being able to attract partners. And the biggest thing is when you go to those events, be prepared. Have, either just a one pager about yourself and your track record and what you've done, and have a deal that you already have in mind and the numbers on that deal. Because I get approached at least twice a week right now from other investors locally that are wanting to partner with me. And I'm like, yeah, what deal are you looking at? And they're like, oh, I don't have a deal. I just want your money if I find a deal. I was like, well, that's not as interesting, and it's obviously, it shows me that you're not really that serious of, putting together deals if you can't even bring me a deal when you're asking for money. So, be prepared with the numbers, be prepared to kind of sell yourself and your value proposition, and do it that way. Another big thing is just interest-based meetups. I'm a huge car fan, so I'm at Cars and Coffee every month. And what better way to find high net worth individuals to go to high net worth events like that? It can be anything. There's a ton of wine meetups in Wilmington. There's a ton of art meetups. I mean, it's just a matter of finding something you're interested in, and then just meeting other people that are also interested in the same thing. Selling real estate is very easy. Everyone inherently knows that real estate is a good investment. So convincing somebody to give you money for real estate, if you have a remote track record and seem trustworthy, is not that difficult, especially if you're bringing the financing, reducing their risk, and you can show that you know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think within the DealMachine app, we actually just launched our sales page feature within the last month as well. Cool. And that's for every single member of Deal, any kind of DealMachine member, no matter what plan you're on. So we launched that for a lot of what you're talking about here is like, hey, bring something so that you're professional, that they know you have your stuff together a little bit, and you can readily share a specific deal. Now within the DealMachine app, if you actually lock up, if you move a property to under contract, then you can automatically generate a sales page from there. If you go to the More tab and then Sales Pages or Selling tab, that is where you get a link where you can just share it with people, whether you're wholesaling that property or bringing in a partner to buy and hold it, or whatever the situation might be. But we try to make it easy for you to look professional and show that you have your stuff together.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, that all lends to getting someone to at least have lunch with you or grab coffee after that event and talk more about the deal. So that's a good idea.
Yeah. Awesome. Steven had a question. What do you recommend in terms of minimum cash flow? Do you have any kind of rules of thumb that you really,
Yeah.
lean on?
So for me, I'm only investing in one area for the most part, in Wilmington, North Carolina. So I know the area very well, and I know what I'm looking for. And I'm looking for minimum $500 a month cash flow. And that normally requires buying a property under $125,000. It requires finding deals off market right now. And those deals that are off market in that price range between 70 and 125 is going to need work, on some level, mostly cosmetic. But at this point, have a turnover crew that can go and rip the carpet, paint the house, throw a new, if it needs a new roof, we'll throw a new roof on there, $3,000 or $4,000, and get it ready for a Section 8 inspection. So I look at it more from a cash flow perspective. And at this point, if it's under that price, I'm putting it under contract sight unseen, and then we'll figure it out afterwards during due diligence. The other big thing is speed. Being able to get to the property and get it under contract fast in this market is really vital. And I think a lot of people sit there and try to analyze every single deal. It's not all going to fit in your perfect, cookie cutter pro forma sheet. And it's a great way of missing out on a lot of good deals, especially if there's long-term benefits. For example, even a few years ago, there was talk locally of them bringing a Live Nation amphitheater downtown, for concerts. And just on the rumor, I was buying a ton of units within a mile or walking distance of the proposed area. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, they built it. And now I'm just going to be converting them all to Airbnbs in that area. So it's just a matter of staying on top of what's happening in your town, and being able to capitalize on that.
Yeah. Well, I know you said don't overanalyze a deal, or you when you're looking at the financing behind it, don't overcomplicate it. Do you have any tips on negotiating around that deal, or especially for newer investors, what are some of the do's and don'ts of negotiating for a deal like that?
Like on an individual unit, like when I'm looking off market? Yeah. So the biggest thing that I'll do is justify why I'm, giving them the lower price. And a lot of people will just see the property, come up with the ARV, and then just throw a number out without really giving a background to it. And sellers hate that. It just looks like you're lowballing them and try to take advantage of the situation. So, and you rarely get a counter if you just, shotgun a bunch of offers without really any context. So I'll have a breakdown of hey, look, this roof is shot. It's at the end of its service life. That's going to be, I'm of course putting retail rates, not the rates that I'm going to be paying, but fair retail rates that contractors would charge locally. Hey, this is going to be a $7,000 roof. Hey, this is going to be a $4,000 or $5,000 unit. Obviously it's all rusted out. So when you're able to break down the expenses of their unit and they already understand that, it's a whole lot easier to get them lower on the price. If you're not able to get them lower on the price, try to get them to throw in other types of, kind of freebies that would come out of their proceeds at closing, like warranties. I do a lot of seller paid warranties for 3, 4, 5 years. That reduces the capital expense on that property for a while. If I can get one HVAC unit out of a 210 home warranty, I just saved $5,000, or $4,000. So those are pretty big things, is explaining exactly why you're having the price reduced. And then if that doesn't work, then you just need to incentivize them on different things, either a faster close, talk to your lender, see if you're able to do, or hard money, do a cash close. Hey, I can close in 10 days or 2 weeks if you're able to give me X amount off. But yeah, there's just different ways, different levers you can kind of pull in order to get a better price. Yeah.
And I think, you touched on towards the beginning of this webinar, you touched on a little bit about your background and how you got started and how you've started to scale. Nick had a question on getting 2 400 rentals in your process of that. I think part of that was finding your niche, right? It was finding, and you talked about student rentals and Section 8 and that type of thing. So can you maybe talk us through that process of finding that niche for yourself and, how to really focus on that?
Yeah. So, my niche, I completely found accidentally. I was at the time buying a property. It was one of my first single family residence that I was buying downtown. It was nowhere near my usual property that I was buying, which was at the time 140, 130, 120. I was buying higher end property, starter homes when I started because I didn't know better. And that was before I decided to kind of go on the low income route. So I found a house. It was $55,000. I said, I'm just going to roll the dice at this. The down payment was literally $12,000. I found a bank to finance a loan that small. They did it. We closed. I knew there was a tenant in there. I knew that it was rented well. But when I closed, the seller told me that I need to call Section 8 and have them switch over the direct deposit to my name. So I did that. I was, pretty scared. I mean, there was all these misconceptions with Section 8. I had no idea what I was in for, with dealing with inspections, dealing with the tenant, dealing with the housing authority. It worked out great. They shot me $1,300 in the first month. My mortgage was $310. And from that point on, I was like, all right, this is the way to move forward. So from then on, I just streamlined the whole Section 8 process from buying the property, knowing what they look for and buying based on that, all the way to, turning it over, passing inspection, and getting that first monthly income check.
Yeah. And then for newbies as well, I know Alexander here asked about the best investing strategy for new investors in terms of risk reward. I know you have a Discord channel that is one of the fastest growing Discord channels out there. So that, yeah, I think for real estate investing. So I think that that whole community is a great place to turn for things like this too. But can you maybe talk a little bit about how to think through risk reward and wholesaling versus buy and hold and best investing strategies for newbies?
Yeah, it all comes down to kind of the lifestyle that you want. I mean, for me, I knew offhand that I wanted to be able to have that passive income through rentals. So my whole goal was to use active income through wholesaling to reinvest into building a larger passive income base. And that required a lot of wholesaling. That required a lot of reinvesting, a lot of cash out refis, and being able to find ways of creatively getting money in seller financing. As far as risk reward, there's almost no risk to wholesaling outside of a few $100 in due diligence and earnest money. So that's going to be by far the best way to get started if you have limited cash and credit. If you have $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 and you're able to find properties off market in your area or in other areas that make sense for a rental, there's no better experience in real estate than just doing your first deal. After you do your first deal, everything else, if you can do one, you can do 500. It's all the exact same. So that would be the biggest piece of advice: is do one wholesale deal, get the assignment fee. It doesn't matter if it takes you 3 months to close it. If you just stick with it, keep finding buyers, keep finding sellers, putting them together, and get the assignment fee. After you buy the first rental, it gets addicting. I mean, it really does. When you get that first direct deposit from Section 8 and you haven't done anything or spoken to that tenant all month, it's like, okay, like I need a lot more of these.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I mentioned your Discord in that question, but I have a few people asking about what the Discord is called. And can you maybe talk more about your community there and why you started it and how it helps investors?
Sure. So if you guys go to passivecashflow.co, it's actually at the bottom of the slide here. And exactly. You can go directly to it. Discord itself is simply a community app. You can get it. It's a mobile app. It's also a desktop app. Once you download it, you'll join. You have a free version where you can see testimonials and ask questions and talk to me directly in there. And then you can always upgrade and get content. I have wholesale videos, how to walk through. Matt and I have done master classes with DealMachine in there. I have all the contracts from all the states, all the offer to purchases. I have wholesale assignment contracts. We do 2 Zoom calls, Tuesdays and Thursdays. One is focused on rentals and portfolio growth. One is focused on wholesaling. And now we're also creating a buyer's list, like a master buyer's list. We're also creating a master title company list. So you have all the title companies in the United States that you can work with. And we're also doing, we're coming up with wholesale deal picks. So we'll give you 10 addresses every week that you can go and research and try to get under contract. So it's just one big place where, we discuss real estate and teach real estate.
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, the other one too that we've had a few people mention your TikTok as well. What inspired you to start that, and what are some of your favorite types of content you're putting on there?
I mean, that was a complete accident as well. I was hanging out with my parents in March. My sister had just come back from Philly, and because she works there, and she was in quarantine with coronavirus, and she said, you should check out TikTok. And of course, I got sucked in like everyone else and kept scrolling for hours. And I had a camera roll full of, just interesting random videos, from the last like 5 or 6 years. So that Christmas before that, I'd given my dad an Acura, a car he's wanted for a while. And he had this like big emotional reaction. And, 3 days later and 11 million views later, I had like 80,000 followers. So I just kept posting content. At the time, I think I had a Ferrari. So I posted Ferrari content. I posted real estate content. I had a bunch of funny tenant stories because, earlier on, I had a ton of interaction with tenants. So eviction stories, nasty tenant stories, funny tenant texts, funny tenant voicemails. My favorite content is definitely, tenant related stuff. I had a tenant, start a strip club at one of my properties a couple months ago. I had, tenants. Yeah, they never cease to amaze me.
Yeah. Do you actually, Eric had a great question on here too. Speaking, I know tenants kind of might fall into this answer, but can you maybe tell us more about your best and your worst deals that you've ever done?
Yeah, best deal was most definitely, you can actually Google it. If you just Google Tom Cruise, Wilmington, NC portfolio or something like that. Me and my partner in 2019 bought 100 units. We just bought a portfolio of 100 houses, all single family. We bought it for $63,000 a door. I think we spent right at 6.3 million on it. My partner brought the down payment, which at the time was, I think we did 15% down. So I think it was a little over $1 million that we brought to the table. I did the financing. I was on the note. He had, was he on the note? No, I was on the note by myself and he brought the financing. That's how we structured it. He got 70% of the cash flow until he broke even. And then I retained 30%. No, sorry, 60-40. We had 60-40 split. And we had 50-50 on equity and 50-50 on voting rights. So we both, had a say in what was going on in the company. And I took that from just a super poorly run portfolio. And a year and a half later, we sold it for $10.3 million. So 6.2 to 10.3, 10.4. And that was all done through Section 8. We took a bunch of units that were, rented privately. The last landlord strategy wasn't exactly the most sound. His plan was to not do any repairs whatsoever, defer all the maintenance, and just charge like $500 a month for an $1,100 a month unit. Because then no one will complain, because nobody wanted to lose their $500 a month housing. So we bought a lot of properties that were in rough shape. We got super lucky. This is also kind of the perfect storm for why these particular 100 worked well. We had Hurricane Florence crush Wilmington 3 weeks after we bought it. So we had over 15 insurance claims out of those 100 units. And we were able to reinvest a lot of the insurance money into growing, to renovating a lot of them. And then also replacing them with Section 8 tenants. So that was probably the best one. The worst one happened like a little over 2 years ago. Me and the same partner, we decided to go buy another 12 units in downtown Wilmington. And it was just a mess. A lot of them were like boarding houses. So there was, one house with 3 or 4 rooms and they were renting it by the room. And the tenants just turned out to be miserable. They misrepresented the income. We didn't verify the income. We didn't verify utilities. They had a code enforcement list that was like 15 pages long that we were on the hook for, as far as like overgrown lawn, asbestos siding, lead-based paint, chips. There was health department warrant. It was just a mess. Me, my partner was unaware because I was the one doing all the acquisitions. I got cocky and I was like, well, we've done this hundreds of times and I just didn't do the due diligence that I should have. We got in it, we were having $6,000-$7,000 a month power bills, $3,000 or $4,000 a month water bills. We had a lot of churn, people were just coming in and out, a lot of crime happening in there. And so we fixed it up as well as we could, as good as we could. And then we sold it and we barely broke even like 6 months later. That was by far the worst deal we've ever done on Chestnut Street. Every time I drive by there, it still gives me like PTSD.
I'm sure. Yeah. Good lesson learned though. Mm-hmm. For anyone, I know Beth had a hand raised and Franco had a hand raised here. If you can throw your questions in chat, it'll make it easier for me to get to that for you guys. But David here, and then same thing, Joshua as well. David here was asking what you're spending and marketing costs per deal currently, and what was that amount earlier in your business?
Earlier on, it was, that was at the very beginning, probably 8 years ago. I was spending about $1,000 a month, $800 to $1,000 a month at the time. And that was through just different bandit signs. Like I said, I spent a lot on marketing, postage, just, basic things like that at the beginning. I wasn't doing a ton of Facebook ads at the beginning. That took a little bit longer. My marketing spend now is, I would say, between $5,000 and $8,000 a month. And now it's just mostly Facebook spend. We're targeting, I think 10 or 15 mile radius from around our area. We're using the leads feature. So we're collecting data such as name, email, phone number. From that, we're getting anywhere from 150 to 200 leads per month on let's say $7,000 spend. And then from those, we'll probably close 3 of them. So whatever the math is on that, I haven't actually calculated on per deal spend. Because also there's a lot of follow-up, out of those couple hundred leads, they may not close this month, which would be associated with that spend for this month, but they may close in 2 months when we follow up with them with postcards or things like that. So, yeah, that's majority of it is going to be social media, paid spend, software costs, obviously property management costs, which is obviously already included with their duties as far as what they do with helping with the acquisitions. And they also do get paid a referral fee of $500 per property if they find a property that closes.
Gotcha. Yeah, and we have a few people in here asking about marketing. You've been giving really good tips and advice on that front throughout this whole webinar. But from a marketing perspective, Nolan asks, what marketing methods can you list? Which I know you did earlier, but if you could reiterate that. And then Mitch also asked, with your marketing SEO background, do you feel that gives you a competitive advantage against other investors who aren't focused on digital marketing means?
No, because SEO didn't play anything into it. SEO is search engine optimization, which is obviously for organic. I never had a website that I was pushing or optimized, that well. Everything I was pushing was to a landing page and really using paid traffic. At the time, my background was in web design. We just did mostly small business web design and also SEO. We did a lot of search engine optimization, keyword analysis, and building inbound links for a lot of clients. So I did have some experience with pay-per-click marketing with Google AdWords, not very much with Facebook, which is where we found the highest quality leads come from. So that's how kind of the background that I had there. As far as the listing them out, yeah, I mean, driving for dollars is going to be, I would say, the best bang for your buck. I mean, you're able to go out there. Yeah, you're spending gas money. Yeah, you're spending time, but you're finding leads that most investors haven't even seen or touched or, reached out to. So that's one. Facebook inbound ads, bandit signs. I think Instagram ads as part of the Facebook platform is working really well as well. I mean, we've only probably spent a couple thousand so far, but the engagement is a lot higher. So we work well with that. We also did do a lot of Google AdWords at the beginning and driving keyword-based intention to our landing pages. So we did Facebook, Google AdWords, bandit signs, DealMachine. Like I said, still do some of those like door hangers and flyers in certain areas. And what else do we do at scale? I think that was pretty much it. We never bought lists. We never paid for lists. We didn't do any like list track or any CoreLogic or any type of big list source. I just found that to be just resold to many different people. Everyone's using the same criteria. It never really did it for me. We were focused more on inbound leads and following up with email. So I would say that's our marketing mix.
Yeah, on the list side too, I mean, you can use within DealMachine, we have our list builder option, but we highly recommend using that in tandem with the driving for dollars portion of it, where you can look at particular criteria and build a really powerful list, but then combining that with actually driving and identifying the distressed properties within that and also other ones in that area, those two together can go really well. But yeah, like just pulling a list and just blanket mailing to it. I know, it's great if you don't have the time to go out and drive for dollars or to hire a bird dog to go do that, but you actually, just sending out mailers blanket to a list, it's going to be, I know we found it's like 5 to 6 times the cost to do that versus your driving for dollars list. So, it's going to be a much higher marketing budget.
Yeah.
Peter jumped in the chat. I like this. He said, I'm looking to impress a big fish cash buyer of mine, much like you, Tom. He's looking for a 32 unit property and above. How do I find these types of off-market deals and what other value can I bring him?
So with larger multifamily deals or larger portfolios, I found the best source is local agents, commercial agents. Find out. In Wilmington, it's very obvious. You drive down the road in any street and you're going to see 2 or 3 different commercial real estate agents' name in Wilmington. On the commercial side, it's going to be CRE, or they'll have some Monteith Construction or some other big construction company. And then they'll have, Intercoastal Realty and then, a couple different agents. So I would just take note of those, see who the big players and the big agents are in your town and reach out to them and tell them what you're looking for and just make sure you get on their list. I found and made so many connections with other agents through either LinkedIn or through my agent that I work with and says, hey, I have a colleague of mine, he's representing the seller on this deal. He's trying to get rid of it before it even hits MLS or LoopNet, because you can try to cold call or postcard, an owner of a 32 unit apartment complex. I think the probability of, either wholesaling that or partnering with that is pretty low. I never really put much time into it. They're always behind multiple LLCs. There's always these gatekeepers. So trying to prospect for those off market is not sustainable, in my opinion. I think I have a lot better luck trying to get a connection through an established, credible source locally, and then reach out through them. And that's how I've done it for all the large deals that I've done, have all come through some type of agent.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we're running up against the clock here. I'm gonna, I have one more question myself. I'll try to knock out as many in the chat as we can. I don't want to keep you too long here, Tom, but one, really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, everybody, check out the Discord, check out his TikTok. We're gonna post this on YouTube afterwards as well. So feel free, if you didn't catch all of it, you can watch the replay on there. I have that contact sharing sheet that I keep throwing in the chat there if you want to network with each other, when you're on markets. My last question before I try to clear out the rest within the chat, if I can, was around just the current state of the real estate market, and if you're changing anything around how you're investing given the state of the market.
Yeah, right now, obviously in every market, I speak to probably 8 or 10 different consulting clients that I work with and coaching clients throughout the week, and they're from all over the country. So I get pretty interesting data and feedback from those in the smallest markets in Iowa and the biggest markets in Florida. Properties are super overvalued. I think that it's going to remain this way for a while. I'm not, that doesn't prevent me from stopping from buying. I'm just not looking at MLS. I'm looking a lot more off market and streamlining a lot of these efforts that I discussed for this entire hour. As far as I'm pretending like I'm wholesaling, I'm prospecting deals as if I'm wholesaling, and then I just buy them myself for my rentals. So that's the approach that I'm taking. It's just too many people that are just paying these irrational, over appraised value, over list value, just trying to get a house. All of a sudden there's a mad rush to buy a house when, before coronavirus, no one cared about buying a house. Everybody was, promoting living, renting for the rest of their lives and having mobility and, kind of doing that. But now all of a sudden inventory is low and everybody wants to buy properties. So I think that eventually it's going to die down longer term, especially if interest rates go up, when, the price of lumber and everything stabilizes, and all these properties that are being built left and right by all these builders. Once that kind of cools down, I think there's going to be a lot more inventory. I am staying in cash. I'm withholding a big cash account in order to be able to pick up any fallout from this, either from the forbearance, if that turns out to be anything, or foreclosure, when all these eviction moratoriums fall out. I'm just going to be ready. I'm hoping for another 08 event. We'll see what happens. I never thought that I would have that opportunity to pick up properties. For the last 8 years that I've been buying properties, every time I buy a property, I'll see someone buy it 2009 and they spent $31,000. Here I am, an idiot, paying 90 grand for it. So it's just timing, so we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think throughout this call, you've highlighted just the power of focusing on off-market deals. And obviously driving for dollars is a big part of that. Stephen had mentioned, how do you effectively prepare to drive for dollars? Do you have a process before you actually get out there, or?
Oh yeah. Because at the beginning I would just drive around aimlessly and I just wasted a bunch of time, gas and frustration. So now I'll just use, I'll go in the DealMachine app, look at the map, I'll use highlights, and then I'll figure out vacancies. I like vacancies a lot. And then I just go and drive for dollars and confirm and take pictures when I'm doing that. And I'll add that to the lead list. As far as the neighborhoods that I target, obviously older neighborhoods, neighborhoods that traditionally have like starter homes or more like brick ranch homes or things like that. I'm not going into any newer neighborhoods. I'm not going for any really high value properties. I'm looking between 70, maybe 150,000 as far as what the properties, may have sold for recently or before everything went crazy. And just look for the ugliest hot properties there, properties that have signs of abandonment, properties that have, mailers and newspapers and overgrown lawns, the traditional signs to, make sure that the properties are either have tenants in them or they're vacant or they end up on a pre-foreclosure list with DealMachine. And I put that together, and then I just map a route. I'm going out with a purpose. And then if I find other properties on the way, then I'll stop and take pictures, but I'm not just zigzagging back and forth. And and trolling. It just takes so much time.
Yeah, and I know our pro level members and up can also do that route planning tool, which is similar, so you can drive a list within DealMachine. So that's a good tip there for everybody. Jamal also mentioned when driving for dollars, there's absentee and owner occupied distressed properties. Do you focus on both or either, or any tips there?
So absentee or what?
Well, absentee or owner occupied.
I prefer absentee. If no one's living there, or the landlord is not even in the same state, they have a much higher probability of responding to an offer if you postcard them. That works really well. If it's owner occupied, I'll do it if it's obviously in disrepair, or it looks like they haven't taken care of it, or they have abandoned it. Those are really the opportunities that I'll see it to add that to the lead list.
Awesome. Well, I know we're right on time here. Last question for me. Sorry to anybody if I didn't get that didn't get your specific question answered here. Feel free on my end. I'm Matt at DealMachine.com, so feel free to use me as a resource as well.
I'll be on at 8:30 on Discord for pro Discord members. So for another hour, I'll do a not one-on-one, but I'll be answering questions on Zoom in the pro Discord. So yeah, every Tuesday.
I was going to say your Discord in general would that be the best place to follow up with you? And then
I would, because you can DM me directly in the Discord.
Awesome. Last question in here. Sure. David had asked, what is currently your biggest business challenge?
Finding deals.
Hey, that's why we're
here. Finding deals. I mean, that's going to be, I think, for everybody, regardless of the area that you're in. It's challenging. It's time consuming. It's obviously the main thing that the hardest part to crack is getting good lead flow, and then the buying side and the transaction side is easy. If you can find a seller that's willing to sell under market value and you can make it work with the repairs, then you obviously have a really good transaction on your hands. But that's always been the biggest business challenge is finding a sustainable and scalable way of keeping our HubSpot full.
Yep. Well, hey, that's why we're here. That's why we're trying to listen to people like yourself and everyone else on this call on what's working for them, and giving you technology to make that easier and more effective. So hey, again, Nancy asked, will this be recorded? Yes, it's being recorded and will be on our YouTube as well. So make sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to review and take notes and follow up on here. But again, Tom, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. To everybody else, happy deal finding and have a great night.
Appreciate it. Bye.